Justin play?
Justin! Michael's at the door!
Today, we're going to hang out with Justin Sunseri. He's a polyvagal-obsessed trauma therapist and coach. He works a lot with teenagers, couples, and families. He's the host of the Stuck Not Broken podcast, and just an overall kind, loving, awesome guy. In today's conversation, we talk about trauma, parenting, technology, and so much more. This is episode 15 with Justin Sunseri. So first of all, your podcast is called Stuck Not Broken. So in what ways are we human beings these days stuck? And how are we not broken? It's kind of a two-sided thing, right? We're stuck, but we're not broken. So can you explain that a little bit?
Well, when I say stuck, not broken, I'm referring to the individual, but you could definitely apply this on more of a societal level as well. But really, it's the podcast is about the individual. So the individual is stuck in a state of defense. It's really about trauma and how our autonomic nervous system or our bodies get stuck in a state of defense. And that's really what trauma is the inability to access our safety state, to like be stuck in defense. So that doesn't mean that you're broken. It actually may be a very normal response to abnormal events or lack of events, like a lack of proper, good enough parenting. And so that leaves you stuck, but that doesn't mean you're broken. It doesn't mean that you're defective or abnormal. It just means you're stuck in your state of defense and possibly in some stage of like development. But that doesn't mean, but there's always like hope to move forward and get unstuck and to recover and to self-regulate and to heal, whatever you want to call it. There's always, to me, that there's a message of hope in there. When you say stuck, not broken, there's a message of hope, and it gets more specific to what we mean with trauma.
A lot of people don't know about the polyvagal theory yet, unfortunately. There's this polyvagal ladder that you talk about. Can you talk about that really quickly? Because I think that might inform people on the different ways, so the different places in the body and the nervous system that we do get stuck.
Well, let's before we do that, let's broaden it so people know what the ladder is in reference to, right? So the larger idea of the polyvagal theory is that it's basically the science of human connection, or mammalian, but we'll just focus on humans. It's the science of connection, but it's also the science of how we respond to danger, right? So the way we do that is ideally our bodies exist in a safe and social state. Our body can be in different states, and basically we'll say it's just safe or danger. And when we're in a safety state, we can connect with each other. We can smile, we can hug, and we can communicate. We can use our eyebrows and our upper cheek area and express emotion, a wide range of emotion. But that's in safety. If you can't be safe, you drop down. This is the ladder, but I'll say we'll shift out of safety and into a danger state, and that's flight, fight, or shutdown, or freeze, which is something separate. But if we can't be safe, we do flight, fight, or shutdown. We'll just keep it at that for now. But it's not like you choose these things. It's not like it's random. It's actually a sequence of events. If you can't be safe, you drop down to flight, then down to fight, and then down to shutdown. So when we say the ladder, the polyvagal ladder, that's what we're referring to as the autonomic hierarchy. It's that sequence of events of how we respond to danger, but also how we respond to safety, which is the opposite. We come out of that. So if we were in danger, we go out of safety down to flight. Let's make up a situation here. Let's say you and I are hanging out and chit-chatting together in the same room, right? And then all of a sudden there's like a loud noise. We're going to go from our safety state, which is us making eye contact and smiling and sharing stories and stuff. We're gonna stop all of that. That's off the table. It's done. If we hear this loud noise, right? And then we're going to shift down into our sympathetic state, which is flight or fight, but it's gonna be flight first. So first we're gonna kind of like stop, and then if there's actual danger, we may get up and like run away. So that's flight. But let's say that we can't run away. So let's say we for some reason there's a loud noise, and now there's a tiger outside the room for some reason. Somehow these are connected. I don't know why. I don't know how. So when this happens, we can't run away from the tiger. It's too fast. We can't really fight it either. Maybe we're throwing things at it, but it's just to no avail. It doesn't help. and now the tiger is like coming toward us. We can't outrun it. We can't fight it. Now the last option on this autonomic hierarchy is to collapse and faint and basically call it play dead, but really you're shutting down. So that's called shutdown. So that's the sequence of events from safety down to shutdown. Now, once that tiger leaves, or if we maybe even in our unconscious shutdown state, if we detect there's an opportunity for escape or for survival here, we come out of shutdown and then back up that polyvagal ladder in the reverse order. So we go from shutdown, from that collapse, and then all of a sudden the sympathetic surge will come into our system. We go from shutdown up into fight. So we push ourselves off the floor, maybe throw something at the tiger, and then we use our flight energy to run and get out of the situation. And then you and I will reconnect somewhere where it's safe and smile and hopefully laugh it off and say, oh my God, wasn't that a crazy situation that was completely made up in this moment right now on this podcast? And then we'll be in our safety state, right? So that's you go down and then back up. That's how the polyvagal ladder, and it's called a ladder because you don't really skip. You kind of have to go through each of those rungs on the ladder. You have to kind of go through each of those in that sequence of events or sequence of autonomic state shifts.
And all mammals, or how far does this spread across the animal kingdom?
Yeah, this is a mammalian thing. Mammals have, hopefully I don't get this wrong because Porges just released a paper where he clarified this, but mammals are, I believe, are the only grouping, I guess, I'm not sure what to call it, that have a myelinated ventral vagus. Other mammals have other animal species apparently have a myelinated dorsal vagus, but it's not super important. But yeah, mammals have this capacity. Basically, behaviorally, we have this capacity to connect and socially engage and form herds and tribes to make families. So that's pretty unique to mammals. So what I'm talking about, the sequence of events, is a mammalian thing. Fish and reptiles can run away and they can immobilize.
It sounds like we want to be in a sort of safe social space where we're a healthy mammal, a healthy animal, a healthy human being, but we have these other parts of our nervous system. We need to fight sometimes, and we need to run away sometimes. We need to freeze sometimes for our survival, but we don't want to stay down there. And when we shift through these different states, from fight mode to flight mode to safety mode, etc., it sounds like our perception, our ears, our eyes, our vision, things like that change, as well as maybe our movements. Can you get into that? Like how?
Yeah, these are autonomic platforms. So whatever autonomic state you're in, whether it's safety, flight, fight, or shutdown, whatever autonomic state you're in, that will act as the foundation or the platform for your cognitions, your behavior, your and this internal sensations, the things that you feel inside, and then also emotions. Sorry, it was like 4 domains I was trying to cover there. Yeah, and then your emotions, so how what you feel basically emotionally. So whatever platform you're in will influence and is a direct contributor to those domains. So if you exist in a safe and social state, you will be able to do things on a behavioral level, like make eye contact gently, not in a scary, creepy way. You'll be able to hug somebody. You'll be able to smile genuinely. All those come from being in a safe enough state to having enough access to those biological pathways. If you're in a flight fight state, then the world functionally or fundamentally experientially becomes a lot different. Like you don't experience the world in the same way. So from flight fight, you're more judgmental. Your thoughts are more judgmental. Your emotionally, you'll have more anxiety and anger, irritability. Behaviorally, you'll be snapping at people more often, probably. You'll be assuming the worst. You'll be ruminating on things. So the world becomes different because it is your filter for the world. And then from shutdown, which is this collapse behaviorally, it's a collapse. It feels like day to day. It feels like emptiness or heaviness, maybe. It feels like sad. It feels like worthless, and then your thoughts will be, what's the point? And I'm no good. it's very empty. I mean, not just behaviorally that collapse, but also your experience of reality becomes very empty and pointless in a sense. Things are very overwhelming. There's not much belief, there's not much hope in your system. So yeah, everything changes based on what platform you're in. Your experience of reality, how you interact with people, how you think about yourself, the behaviors that you can do, your potential to connect with people, all these things shift along with whatever polyvagal state that you're on. So where you're at on that polyvagal ladder.
So it sounds like a lot of people are somewhere in this not safe social space. Even myself, sometimes I feel like I like to spend a lot of time alone. Sometimes I'm judging people. I get irritated. I get impatient. And especially if you throw in like certain substances like alcohol or things that might tip you over the edge even more, I feel like, who am I? I'm not me anymore sometimes. So
yeah.
It's not easy to get to the safe social space for some people. How do we start to be all happy and social and liking people and smiling and all that? Because everyone can't always do that. So yeah, have any ideas of how do some people start off that way? Almost like you meet these happy adults who are already safe and social, maybe from their childhood or something, and you meet these other people who have a long ways to go, and there's not like a simple pill or something you can give them.
No, there's not that I know of, at least. Although, I mean, I guess you could use substances to make yourself feel a certain way, but that doesn't, to me, that's more of like you're tricking yourself in a way. It doesn't fix anything. It's like you might have a temporary moment of relief, but then things go right back to the way they were because no actual autonomic shifts have been happening. You're not actually climbing your polyvagal ladder. You're I would call it like a pseudo climb. Like you're sort of, it feels like it enough and it's a relief from whatever pain you're in. But I don't think it's the same as actual autonomic shifts that people can go through. There's a lot that you kind of brought up.
Yeah.
There's a lot that you brought up in that, which is, so I want to like validate and like agree that, yeah, it's not easy to just be happy. Like that's not, no, of course not. And you may live a life where it's downright impossible. Maybe someone actually is surrounded by a lack of literal safety. So they have an environment that is not safe. They are in a home where there is a lack of safety, or a neighborhood where there's a lot of the kids. I work for a school district in a very high needs school district, and they literally don't have safety. They literally go to homes where it's not too good. So that may be true. And so to expect that person to then access their safety state and be able to smile and hug and connect with people, like that's unrealistic. That's not right. So you have to have, the first thing is you kind of have to have safe enough people in your life and safe enough environments. We don't need perfection. We don't need everyone to have super happy people in their life, not to be surrounded by and saturated by that. I think it's kind of unrealistic. And I think it's actually kind of a good thing to have challenge in life. So we don't need perfection, right? But in order to get out of a danger state, you kind of have to have enough safety, enough safe people, enough safe environments to do so. That's part of it. Once you have that, then you can do it's called self-regulation. Well, part of this is you can accept co-regulation from safe people. They can provide safety cues. But the other part of this is you can do some self-regulation, potentially as long as you learn how to and can mindfully experience whatever you have inside of you. So, it's once you have safe people, safe environments are safe enough, then you can start to work on what does safety feel like for you? How do you access that? And can you build your capacity to not only feel safe, but also stay in your safety state, which is a big challenge if you're not used to it. It's a big challenge. And then if you could do that, then the next thing would be, well, now can you feel your stuck defensive state? Can you feel your traumatized state? It doesn't mean like you have to like delve into your trauma and like relive it and tell the story to someone like a therapist. I don't think that's necessary, but it does mean that you have to do some self-regulate. You have to mindfully feel what is stuck inside of you. You have to mindfully feel that stuck flight, fight, shutdown, or that freeze, which is something separate. You kind of have to mindfully experience that, and then the polyvagal ladder can start to shift. You'll start to climb up that polyvagal ladder. So there's a lot of pieces there, and it may not be realistic for everyone to do that and to just turn on happiness. That's not realistic. So I agree. But that's kind of the map. That's the layout of how it could work.
What can parents or teachers or ourselves as friends or potential friends do to maybe make the world more inviting or make people feel safe? Or is it something we can do consciously, or is it just something we unconsciously do as someone who's already in that higher state? Or I don't want to call it a higher state, but a healthier state in a way.
Let's call it optimal. That's kind of the way I frame things. And optimal meaning when you're in your safety state, the body naturally optimizes the resources, the same resources. So instead of using oxygen and I don't know, whatever food resources that we take in, instead of nutrition and stuff, instead of using those same resources for constantly being in an anxious flight state, we can use those same resources for health and growth and restoration. So it optimizes. Being in your safety state is not better or worse. It's not good or bad. That's what I mean. But it does optimize your resources. So it's not I don't want to put like a moralistic judgment, sort of like we should be here. It's like when we are here, it's better for our body. Yeah. But it's also, so I'll just leave it at that. So I would call it optimizing. What was your question? I'm sorry. Bring me back to, what can people do? So what we can do is,
what can we do to try to make the world a little bit better for people?
Yeah. So what we can do as individuals is do the best we can to self-regulate. And that means that we climb our own polyvagal ladder as best we can. And once we do that, especially as adults, once we do that, then we can provide co-regulations. And that means that we are basically unconsciously telling through our voice, through our body posture, through all kinds of stuff, we are displaying cues of safety that other people, other mammals, will pick up on. And I think a good reference for this would be like if you have a dog, they are really good co-regulators. You can tell they are excited to see you. They look at you in the eye. They have connection and hope in their face. They have empathy. They're able to connect with us, and that helps us to feel more in our safety state. So if we can do that, I think the world becomes a much better place. But first, we kind of have to self-regulate. I know that we kind of need co-regulation to learn self-regulation in a sense. So it is this like circular thing. But once you hear this information and start looking into this stuff, I think that opens up, once you lay that knowledge foundation, that might open you up to taking more responsibility for your own state. And your stuck state may be completely the fault of somebody else, and they are responsible for that. But sadly, when it comes to making change, the responsibility is on the individual, I think, to ultimately make change.
And so self-regulation is you're going to need to be like aware of your body and knowing when you fall into these states, or is it like some kind of techniques like meditating, or what do you mean by self-regulation exactly?
When I say self-regulation, I'm specifically referring to the capacity to shift up your polyvagal ladder into your safe and social state. And so meditation is a technique of that. It could be, but self-regulation in and of itself just means that you can climb your own polyvagal ladder into your safety state. That's literally what I'm referring to. How that looks is different for each of us. And meditation might be one of those things. Yoga could be one of those things. Singing could be one of those things. Journaling could be. I mean, this looks so many different ways. So the way it looks, the behaviors of it are what leads to whatever happens inside those autonomic shifts that people go through into their safety state.
And the core of this seems to be the nervous system and our overall safety of our environment and the people we're around and all of that. But do you put any role on things like nutrition or supplements or any of that stuff? How can things like certain foods bring us up or bring us down or whatever?
I don't know about supplements, but nutrition, yeah, that's pretty darn important. I don't know too much about that, but I know, like, I'll talk for me personally. Like, there are things that, here's an extreme example is I'm allergic to sesame seeds. So sesame oils, stuff like that will put me into it feels very much like a shutdown state, like my body cannot handle it. And it seems like it just sort of uses all of my processes to deal with, I don't know, sesame stuff. So when I have sesame, and I don't realize what's happening, but when I have it, like if I have like oils or something like that, I go into like I'm just out, like I basically collapse, and not like a full on like faint, but like I just get extremely fatigued and tired, and it kind of feels like shutdown, but it's not exactly the same thing, because it seems like there's something else going on that I can't just like mindfully feel my way through and experience and relieve. There is something else that's like imposing shutdown on me. So that would be an extreme example, but it's very much a shutdown. Like I'm out, and I'm just like out for quite a while, and then I come out of it, just from lots of sleep. Like it's pretty intense. But if it's like, but other things, like if you're eating healthy stuff, it's probably going to be more, I don't know how that affects the autonomic nervous system, but it provides more, I would assume, resources for optimizing your, bodily processes and whatnot. I can't get too deep into this. Yeah. So I'm not sure how much more I can really add to it, Supplements I have no idea about.
Yeah. But the enemies aren't always big old tigers. The enemies can be little sesame seeds. And
sure,
although we are social mammals, we also are these biological creatures that need water and all that stuff too. So when I'm listening to your podcast, I see there's a huge focus on other people and be out there safe and social. And now I'm getting into another question now, but one of the first things that sort of threw me back when I was listening to your podcast was I'm someone who's really introverted, and I think I like to spend time alone. And I think a lot of people have this idea that some people have this idea that it's like some kind of weakness to need other people, or that if you can be independent and be on your own and be happy alone, that somehow that's better. And it's almost like you start looking down on people or becoming antisocial in certain ways. And I think I thought that was some sort of weird mark of intelligence for me or something at the beginning. And that kind of, when I heard you talking about that, I was like, no. But, like my mom died last year, and my brother's gone homeless, and all these different things have happened. And I feel as a mammal, like, oh God, am I dying or something? I can feel it, like the energy being sapped out of me. And it's just like, it's not just that, but also just this past couple of years of COVID and all this stuff where I know we don't want to get all political and stuff, but wearing masks, not being able to give off or see those social cues. Right. I felt very alone this past couple of years, which is what I thought I wanted. And I thought that was some sort of mark of superiority or something, that my way of overcoming my childhood trauma or something. I don't know what that was. But after listening to your show and having this experience, I'm realizing, no, being with other people is something we all need. But at the same time, part of me, I like that idea of being alone. And I don't know. I don't want to just completely be meshed in with the herd. So this is weird battle between the two things. So
yeah, sounds awful. No, I'm with you. I'm 100% with you. I do just fine on my own. I prefer being alone. I love my family. I prefer to be with my family, but at the same time, I need a lot of alone time. I don't do well, and I have almost no interest in like chit chatting with people. I hate chit chat. I don't have much energy for like prolonged conversation. Like this is fine. This is stimulating for me, but like just chit chatty, work BS stuff, it's draining for me. I think the concern that I have is when we hear the polyvagal theory, or when people first hear it, and we hear about like how being safe and social optimizes your resources, that to me, there's a period there. But what people do is they say, therefore, this is how you should be. And it's like, no. Let's bring that back. I can be in my safe and social state and be alone. That's called solitude. I can be in my safe and social state and just hang out with my kids and be with my family. I don't need to it doesn't have to look a certain way, but you'll have to be not just you, but people listening would have to be honest with themselves of when you're alone, is it in solitude and you're okay with it? Or are you alone in fear? Or are you alone in depression? Are you alone in allowing your experiences and your feelings? Or are you alone and you're judging yourself and shaming yourself? So being alone is not a bad thing. I don't think you have to it doesn't have to look like a ton of sociality. We're all different, and we're all going to have different capacities for that. And I think, even if it looks like someone's super social, that might be their fight energy. And that's the way they cope with it, is by keeping their mind off stuff and going out partying. That doesn't mean that they're in their safe and social state. That might be their coping mechanism. That might be their behavioral adaptation. So I really want to stop people from being like, here's the polyvagal information, therefore this is how it should look. I don't agree with that at all.
Okay, that's great, because I thought, man, I thought I was okay. I thought I was happy I'm an introvert, and at the beginning, I think when you first start getting into the theory, you start to think, is this some sort of anti-introvert thing going on here? Like, what's wrong with being an introvert? Does that mean I'm traumatized? And now you're saying you can be a healthy introvert or you could be an unhealthy extrovert. It's not really connected, I guess, right?
Yeah. No, but what I'll add to this though is, let me add one more piece, because we do need each other. We don't do well alone, but moments of solitude and aloneness is different than like isolating yourself in judgment and shame, like I said. So as a mammalian, we're mammals. We literally need each other. Babies cannot raise themselves. We don't do well with too much aloneness. So that's why people have to really be honest with themselves on what they need. We do need each other. We do need to connect with others. We don't do very well in isolation. I think all the pandemic stuff and quarantine has had a very negative impact. I see it with the students I work with. I work with teenagers. It's not good. It does not have a good impact on people. So it's like we don't do well in extreme isolation, but that doesn't mean that we can't be alone. That doesn't mean that we can't allow some solitude into our lives as we need it.
Imagine you have some sort of like magical, I don't know, you're some magic trauma god or something, and you can redesign schools and redesign hospitals. I guess we'll start with schools. How would you redesign schools or the way education system works, ideally, to make people a little bit less traumatized? Because I mean, I went to school and that was like a scary place. Hospitals can be scary places. Even the work. I mean, you don't need to look at schools. Look at any of these places, work or hospitals or schools or a lot of different parts of the city, the society, the outside world that we're in. The outside world is kind of scary, and we're kind of pushed into all these places that they're supposed to be home-like, but like they're scary sometimes, and they push us down into fight mode or flight mode. And especially when we're kids, it might trap us there for a while. I feel, but I know it's a hard question. You're not some god or some city planner or something, but what are some basic things you might want to change at a school or in a hospital or wherever you can pick the place?
Dude, that's a huge question, and my mind literally just went everywhere. I was thinking
I'm sorry, man.
No, it's all right. So I don't know how I can narrow. I don't think I can narrow this down, but I'll tell you where my mind went. My mind went to first thing was like I wouldn't change anything. I would get parents more connected to their kids. I would get parents to appropriately express love and affection and pride. I would also get parents to utilize appropriate consequences that are effective. That's the first thing I would do. Is if I could just do that, I would do that immediately. Because I know that kids that come from homes with co-regulation, stability, predictability, they do a lot better in school. Like that is the fundamental thing. The other thing I went to was the other thing. So like I get the classroom atmosphere. Yeah. My mind's everywhere. There's a lot of jaded teachers out there. There's a lot of teachers that love the heck out of their kids and are super motivated. There's a lot of teachers that are super jaded. And I think we could dig into, or they can dig into why that is. Teachers providing help for teachers, maybe I'll put it that way. I think teachers need a lot of support and a lot of help. It is not, at least in my district, it is not an easy job. It is not cushy. It is not full of positivity and support from their higher ups. The classrooms are a nightmare oftentimes. I think providing a lot of support to teachers is extremely important. I think that the school districts need to have, I think effective consequences are important. And it seems like a lot of schools are terrified of parents and terrified of kids and terrified of litigation. That's part of this. I think that classroom environments definitely should have more co-regulation, brain breaks. I think that being outside is a really good idea. Physical education is a really good idea. There's just tons of pieces to this. So it's one thing. I think the one thing I would do is if I was like a, trauma god, would be to get the family system the kid's connection with their parents. That is the
You are a trauma god. Don't
most important,
thought
yeah.
you are. You're already trauma god, man.
Well, what I would do is let's get homes in order. It would be homes. It would be families. It would be parents.
I know you're not. This isn't a therapy session, but there are 10 children in my family. I came from a big family, and so if you can answer some of these questions, it might actually help my whole family, all my brothers and sisters. Which a lot of, I mean, there's none of us are perfect, but we didn't really have consequences in our family. We did in a way, but it's like, it's a resource problem. I think it's like one dad, one mom, 10 kids. How do you handle all of them? How can you actually have consequences sometimes? So they had rules, mostly from the Mormon church, and follow the rules. But we wouldn't follow the rules. We would do what we wanted, and there would be no consequences. And what kind of effect can that have on children?
Not having consequences? Is that what you're asking? What kind of effect can that have?
Yeah, I don't know. It's like this weird environment of what happens when kids don't have consequences. And I guess I'm just spilling out the whole bag of problems right now. And I never really thought about it too much yet, but we didn't really have consequences. And if you combine that with like lack of physical touch, lack of hugging, lack of sort of this emotional attention. So, I mean, you don't have to hit all these different angles, but for me, I felt like we didn't have the attention just because I think there was too many kids maybe, or maybe, there's cultural and generational trauma going on too. Who knows? But like lack of touch is one thing I want to ask about. The lack of consequences is another thing. And then lack of just sort of this emotional connection, talking to the children as human beings, but not as just things to be, controlled or whatever. By, in this case, like religion sometimes controls children. You could talk about any of those things you want. It's a little grab bag.
It's a lot. Yeah. I'll start off with, so consequences are only effective if the parents have a solid and stable and loving relationship with them, because if they don't have that, then nothing matters. And that's what I do I've done a lot of parenting groups in the past, and something that they would come in and say is nothing works. Consequences don't work. And I'm like, if that's true, then like what's going on in the family? And they'll express things like, yeah, I don't know how to say I love you. I don't play with them. We just kind of hang out on our phones and tablets. And it's like, okay, so yeah, no kidding. Like there's nothing matters to this kid because they don't have you. So you try to give them a consequence, like the biggest thing in their life is already gone. So the consequence means nothing. At the same time, if you have, I believe, and with my own kids, that's what I see, is that when you have really safe, stable, loving household, their needs are met, their emotional needs are met, there's appropriate physical touch, they feel like they're a part of the family, their voice matters, consequences are not as necessary. And they have there's always natural consequences. So if they make a dumb decision, there's probably going to be a consequence for that in school, although that's kind of artificial. I don't think they call it natural, but there's going to be like, they're going to lose a friendship. Something's going to happen to where they'll feel remorse, they'll feel regret, they'll feel guilt. Hopefully, if they've had a healthy enough upbringing, they will naturally feel these things, and that will be a deterrent to doing that behavior again. But even with all of let's say we have that ideal scenario, that kid is going to come up against things in life that are outside of their, maybe what they have experienced. So like with our kids, we don't allow them to do YouTube. TikTok will never be a part of our house. We don't allow any sort of social media, no Instagram, no, Discord, the forum thing. And for a brief moment, we allowed it, and it was a disaster. And even though my kids are awesome and empathetic, actually my son's 7, so he hasn't touched that stuff yet, and he won't. But for my daughter, like it was not good. It was not good. And so the consequence was you don't get access to these things anymore. And we made a rule for our house. So that's more of an artificial, we imposed that. That's not like a natural thing where she feels guilt, or because that's a distinct thing. So it's like the natural consequences are great. And ideally we want those ones that we feel empathy and then change our behavior. But then I do think that if we have a stable home environment, if we have safety, predictability, needs met, then there also is a role for artificial consequences where parents or maybe, school officials come in and say, like, this is a change that we have to make. You no longer get access to this thing until, whenever. Did that answer your question?
Okay.
Oh, so yeah, because you asked about touch, and so it's like it's not good enough. You don't just have consequences. There's plenty of homes where there's far too many consequences and not nearly enough of the connection and love and whatnot. And that really is the absolute most important thing, is a genuine connection with your family, with your kids, no matter what your family system looks like. That it is the fundamental thing. In my therapy experience, I work with adults and teens and young, but I do a lot of work with teens over the years. The fundamental thing consistently is their relationship with their parents is not good. I'll just put it that way. I mean, like it's not good, and it could be downright abusive, but it could also be just emotionally distant. And that disconnection is what I believe is fundamental to almost everyone that I've worked with in therapy, and the people that it's not fundamental to, like kids that have a good, healthy home relationship or family. They might still come to therapy, but it's more about something else they went through, like something traumatic they went through. And now they just kind of they need that extra professional support to get through it. But the home life, otherwise, like that home life is the common denominator, I would say, in damn near everyone I've worked with. I don't want to be super absolute, but like it's predictable in my opinion.
But what happens when they grow up and it's like 20 years later and they totally forgot about that and they don't know what's wrong with them? Or I don't know, is there if we don't have parents, is there another solution beyond parents?
Yeah.
Can we skip that, or how do we get over that if we don't, like, maybe our parents died, or just there's no way to reconcile it, it's just too long ago, or I don't know, are there other ways to co-regulate?
Yes. The first thing is, like, they didn't forget. Their body knows. So even if you don't consciously remember, which is possible, your body remembers. You're stuck in a defensive state. So that's when we say, like, the body keeps a score. I think that was Bessel van der Kolk, right? When we say the body keeps a score and the body remembers, the body stores trauma, that's what we're talking about, is you're stuck in a defensive state. So even if you can't consciously recollect, why you are the way you are, the body knows. It's like that for a reason. You're stuck in a defensive state for a reason, and oftentimes it is a upbringing sort of thing. So let's say that you don't consciously remember why, and you just feel the way you feel. You're stuck because you're stuck. We can get co-regulation from our pets. We can get co-regulation from our family, from our spouse, from our friends, from our coworkers if you're close to them, or even, like, you don't actually have to be close to them. Even just like when you go to the store and you're buying something, when that clerk smiles at you and asks you how you're doing, they have a full range of their voice. Like, we pick up on all those cues. Those are like teeny tiny moments of co-regulation that do affect us. So yeah, we can find co-regulation. Ideally, we have it more often than not. Ideally, we have it in our home environment. But it's hopefully we surround ourselves with opportunities for co-regulation. So the challenge is to mindfully notice those little moments and experience them, and allow yourself to experience those little brief moments of connection, and to allow it to be there. But yeah, it may not last very long, but just catch it when it's there, feel it, experience it, and that can help build a reference point for what safety feels like. So yeah, I think it's very much possible. It's just, even that person who, like, lives alone and their family's not around anymore, no spouse, no, significant other, they may very well be alone constantly. But hey, maybe there's something that they're into. Maybe there's something they're interested in. Maybe there's a religious thing they can get a part of. Maybe there's a club at school if they're younger. Maybe there's a softball league for adults, amateurs. I don't know. Like, I don't know what the answer is, but it is possible to connect yourself with others in a way that is safe and approachable, typically. And I'm sure there's that example of someone's like, no, it's not possible. And it's like, okay. But typically there may be some avenue for connection with others, I think.
Yeah. A minute ago, you're talking about kind of this, about technology. What role has this advance in technology this past couple decades had on people's nervous systems, and maybe why, as a father, do you not want your children to partake too deeply in it?
It's disastrous. That's why it's not good. It's at best a coping mechanism, which is fine if you want to numb out. Like I'll play video games every now and then. I'll watch movies. Like that's not a big deal. So it's entertainment at best. Beyond that, it could be a coping skill. All right, fine. If you want to numb out, get your mind off stuff, cool. I get it. At its worst, it is extremely addictive and feeds into a lot of dysregulation. So someone who's already dysregulated will use that as a means to pick fights, bully. I mean, the kids I work with, like they get bullied at school, they go home, they're bullied on their social media, their these online stuff, and it's like inescapable. And so not being able to escape something is that's part of trauma, I think. So I'm not saying that these platforms are traumatic, but I think I know for some people that it's like, if you can't escape it at school, if you go home to an environment that's not co-regulative and on the internet, you can't even escape it there. I think that's an issue. Kids are like creating dummy accounts to pick on each other. So I don't think the platforms are evil. I'm not saying that at all, but I think that, and it can serve a great purpose. Literally all the wealth of information of the world is at your fingertips. That's amazing. I love it. But it's also a breeding ground for toxic thoughts and interactions. I think that adolescents in particular, younger kids and adolescents are more prone to poor influences through their addictive behavior. I think there's a potential there. Like they won't stop if we don't. I don't want to speak in absolutes, but a lot of the kids I work with and see, if they're not involved in something else, like they're sucked into these little screens, these rectangles that we surround ourselves with, and they're like glued to it in a very addictive way, not exactly a coping way, not exactly an entertainment way, but just like they're immersed in it and that is their reality. So I think that as adults and as hopefully well-regulated, individuals, we can be like, hey, this is the limit. You can do it here. That's fine. But here's the limit. For my kids, when we're getting too dysregulated, we just pull it off completely and be like, look, you got to take a break. You've gone past the point. Like, and we could feel it. You could feel it when when my kids in particular, when it's been too much, like they get too sympathetically active. You could feel the fight. You could feel the irritation. They're way more snappy when the screen goes off. They're like, you could feel that irritation, and so they're not bad, but I do think that some top-down regulation, some controls from adults are a really good idea. There's just too much there to like wade through for kids, Do
you think that also has something to do with not only this sort of negative effect on them, but also this lack of a positive effect of, as children and as animals and as humans, we want to play. We want to play a lot as children. And I think with technology, we're not really playing. We're kind of distracting ourselves from what we really want to do. And what kind of can you talk about what is play and why is play important?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. Play is the combination of your safety state and your flight fight state. So it's being mobile but being safe. And yeah, we need play. Play is extremely important. Like actual play, not really video game play. But actual play where you're interacting with people and making eye contact and you're mobile and you're, like even physical play, like wrestling or basketball, football. These are physical things there's a chance for dysregulation. There's a chance for things to go wrong, right? And so when you can look at the other person and be like, hey, no, we're good. And you can give those safety cues, those physical, those facial safety cues of making eye contact and smiling and be like, hey, oh, my bad. That the other person in play, or both people in play, might feel some dysregulation, like, why'd you do that? Or why'd you break that rule? But then when you can look at the other person and see that they didn't mean it, or it was an accident, or like, hey, I'm still okay. I'm not actually trying to hurt you, or whatever it is, that can help like calm the situation and that can help re-regulate. So that process of dysregulation, re-regulation builds the strength of someone's capacity to self-regulate. So play is extremely important in the process of self-regulation, which is pretty darn important in being able to offer co-regulation in the future. So play is central to self-regulation and co-regulation. And like when it comes to video games alone, that's not play. That's just you coping or entertaining yourself or whatever. And that's fine. or the addiction aspect to it, which is not as fine, or not fine. So, but you could also, like my kids and I, we like to play Mario Kart, and we're playing a game, but we're also together. So we laugh together and we yell at each other in fun ways, and we encourage each other and we talk trash to each other. So there is some co-regulative shared experience there. That's not like in isolation, just someone playing video games by themselves. And
you're probably sitting there together, like, kind of just physical touch and things like that going on too, probably.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, we're very like hyper and loud. Yeah.
What are some? Actually, I'm interrupting you a lot. I interrupt a lot of people a lot. This is a problem, a thing I want to get over with, and this is also why I've been doing these solo podcasts for so long. Because I'm like, oh god, I don't want to get over my problems of talking slower and talking less, and becoming a better listener, and all these communication skills. Why do so many people? Why do I? I don't. You can't answer that, but. You don't need to hurt my feelings. Maybe I'm in fight mode or something. I don't know. But what is the nervous system, the polyvagal theory answer to why people might talk fast or interrupt or do some of these things that we don't feel good when we do them, but we do them anyway sometimes? Is that like a fight mode or flight mode, or what's going on there?
I think that I don't know about your experience, but for me, like when I interrupt people too. And it's because I'm excited. I'm into the conversation, and it's just like a back and forth. And I think with friends, that's not a big deal. And it's, whatever. But when in more formal situations, that might feel more like a disconnection or a rupture in the conversation. But for me, it feels like not fight. It just feels like excitement. So I have some fight. I have some mobility in my system, but I'm still in my safe and social state. So it's kind of like a play, but it's more of like a competitive or motivated or excited flavor of play. But it's just verbal, So for me, it's like there's mobility in my system, but it's also like you have to think about the context. The context is you're a podcast host. You have a direction in mind, maybe of where you want this to go or what you want your audience to hear. So you interrupting could be like a combination of excitement, interest, or it could be I'm a terrible guest and I'm not like making sense and you're trying to derail it. So it could be a bunch of different things, But for me in particular, it's more of like excitement. Like I'm really into it. And that's when I start to interrupt people, but it's not like a competitive thing. It's not like I'm trying to squash them. It's more like I'm just really into it. And that's how it comes out.
Same. I'm into it too. And that's exactly what I have so much energy. How does energy itself, because energy is sort of I guess it is a nervous system thing, but it's also, I guess you never talk about neurochemicals like dopamine and all that stuff, and you never talk about the microbiome, or there's like these trendy topics these days, right? The neurochemicals and the microbiome and all that. I a lot of people have been thinking in terms of like dopamine and serotonin and all that, and that doesn't matter. How does that all connect to this? Have you put those pieces together, the neurochemicals and the autonomic nervous system?
Not in specific depth.
Kind of throwing a curveball here. It's not really things. Following the conversation.
Yeah, that's all right. Nothing in super depth. When it comes to chemical releases, like I think we sound smart when we talk about serotonin and dopamine and whatever, but like no one knows. And even on my podcast, I talk about polyvagal theory, but how often do I talk about the vagus nerve? I have no idea what the hell's going on in there. So it's like this is the science for the ideas that I want to express. But I'm not measuring the stuff. When with my therapy clients, I have no gauges to measure their ventral vagal activity. Like I have no freaking idea. But I do know when they're smiling. I do know when they're able to like breathe softly. I do know when they're able to make eye contact. I do know when they're able to laugh. So I can read their behavior and hear their voice, their vocal prosody. And that my inference is, they're probably in a ventral vagal state or enough. But I don't need to like track. That doesn't do anything exactly to know that. It's more about what are you experiencing right now and bringing mindfulness to that. So it's like the same thing with serotonin and dopamine. I don't know what the hell's going on, and no one really does. So it's like it sounds
they can't even measure that anyway. They don't know how to measure dopamine or serotonin anyway. It's just like a weird little thing. My point here is I have a lot of energy. It's weird because I'm an introvert, but I have like all this energy and this excitement. And when I first heard about the polyvagal theory, I thought, excitement is bad. Excitement is fight or flight. I should be calm. I should be relaxed. And why am I wrong there? I feel like something must be wrong about that, because this energy feels good, but it also feels like, is this fight energy? Am I fleeing? Is this
none of these things are good or bad.
What's going on here?
No, yeah.
Okay.
See, that's that level, that type of evaluation. If you're curious and you're wondering, that's fine. If you want to, if you're curious about what your state feels like, and I'm speaking the general you. But when we start saying, well, this is good or bad, now that's an evaluative mindset, and that comes from probably more flight fight energy. Well, actually, it could be shut down or freeze as well. But that comes from a defensive state. I'll put it that way.
With ethics themselves, like these ideas of good and bad and morality and right and wrong and this sort of judgment type based thinking, does that go away more when you're in when you're in a safe social mode?
Yes. Yeah, it really, really, really does.
That's good. So culturally, is there some, because you keep saying like, what is it? Story follows state. Deb Dana says story follows state. If that's true as an individual, that our beliefs and our ideas and our mindsets and all the stuff up here follows the underlying state, is that also true for cultures and societies and larger groups? Our values and beliefs and ethics and all of these things, could that maybe go back to our larger state as our biological state as a country or as a group or family or whatever?
Yeah, I think so. Now, I think that there are cultural messages that are imposed upon, and that could be political, that could be religious, that could be even familial messages. There's these different, large system messages that are imposed. And if I would argue that if you're in a safe and social state, your capacity to be influenced by these messages is probably less. And you can think critically and be like, no, that doesn't make sense. I'm not going to accept that message. But these larger institutions like government and religion and even family, they have a way to coercively impose ideas onto people as well. But if you exist in a defensive state, your capacity to accept these ideas as true probably go higher, or to react out of fear probably go higher. So I think that the individual accepts these top-down messages and from their defensive state, and then perpetuates them through their defensive state as well. Yeah, does that make sense?
So, are we more likely to even self-punish ourselves or judge ourselves more, say bad things or good things about ourselves more when we're lower down the ladder? I guess this goes back to the whole ego thing too. Basically, do we have a bigger ego whenever in a more sensitive soul or something when we're lower down the ladder?
You'll have to define.
It's kind of a weird question.
What do you mean by ego?
I feel like, okay, sometimes I feel like I get really strict on myself. I do something and I'm like, no, you can't. You can't eat anything for a week or something. Not like that, but you almost like this. You're weirdly punishing yourself because you broke your ethics or something, or you did something naughty, and then you're like, no, and you're kind of trying to control yourself in weird ways. And I don't know, polyvagal theory aside or whatever, it doesn't matter. Just as you as a person, why are we so hard on ourselves? And why are we trying to control ourselves? And is that even healthy? I don't know.
I think that let's take away the healthy as the healthy or unhealthy. Let's just look at it as
Okay, I keep judging things again. I'm clearly in fight mode or something.
So let's say someone is, and we all do this. We all have these things that we tell ourselves that are self-perpetuating of maybe a defensive state. So story follow state means whatever state that we're in directly affects the thoughts in our brain. So when we have thoughts like I'm terrible, that comes from some sort of state that is not safe and social. I would say that's more of a defensive state, but you have to kind of ask yourself, what's the flavor of that state? So what I would encourage people to do is when you notice those, as best you can, when you notice those thoughts pop into your brain, just notice it. Don't accept it or don't reject it. Just recognize it's there, and then ask yourself, how do I feel inside? So if my thought is I'm terrible, I suck, no one's ever going to love me. Like, okay, that's the thought. Those are the words in my brain. What the hell's going on inside of me? How do I feel right now? And do the best you can as being as honest as you can to notice the state or the sensations or the feelings that you have. And so you might have some tension, you might have some anxiety or anger, and that's not easy to do. So the other thing that someone could do is to notice those thoughts and just let them be there. Like, they're not going to go in it. You can't force them out anyways. It'll probably just make things more frustrating. So like, let them be there and say, hey, I recognize you. Okay, I see you. I need to do something right now that helps me to slow down and be in my safety state. So that could be another alternative. But really, the issue is not the thought. The issue is, what's the state driving the thought, and then the thought perpetuates the state, like it's a self-fulfilling sort of cycle.
So how does a lot of us have fears? We have these fears, and we're scared of things we tell ourselves we're scared of, and sometimes it's just this one little thing that happened when we were a kid. Like you mentioned the time when you got chased by the dog, and that happened to me when I was a kid. I got chased by these dogs, and I think I tell myself I'm still scared of dogs, and I don't know. Is that what's my question? My question is fear and stuff in general, and getting over these things. Maybe it wasn't a big deal for you, but for me, I still got it.
Yeah, you said that. I tell myself I'm afraid, therefore I'm afraid. That's what I heard. Did I get that right?
Yeah, but it's not only that. I think I do feel it in my body too. So I don't know if it's story follows state or state follows story, but it seems like it's a little bit of both.
Yes, the answer is yes. That's it. So we can't. I don't want people to contribute. We're assigning too much value to our thoughts. We're saying that our thoughts is the issue. If we could change our thinking, then we would feel differently. I don't know if that's true. And I think that's a pitfall of like cognitive behavioral therapy, where if you just focus on the thoughts, or if you more cognitive sort of therapies, if you just focus on the thoughts and we try to change the way you think, that'll solve the problem. And it's like, well, the thoughts are there because your body's in a certain state, and your body's in a certain state because you don't know how to feel your feelings. You don't know how to self-regulate. You don't know how to sit with the discomfort and allow that natural self-regulation, polyvagal ladder climbing to happen. That's the issue. The issue is not the thoughts. The thoughts are a byproduct of whatever state you're in. To me, that's the issue.
But it seems like as a society, as people, we've put so much value on this prefrontal cortex, or this rational mind, this conscious mind, and everything below here just seems to be like some not important. We've become disembodied or decapitated or something. And what happened? Have we always been that way, or have things gotten worse over certain centuries or decades? Or I don't know how much you've thought about that historical perspective, but from what you're saying, it seems like we need to reconnect with our bodies and not forget about our mind, but we need to become one living thing, and we are basically a body. And how did we get so far away from that?
That's a really good question. I don't know what the turning point was, but I'd assume that at some point, us humans, as just, mammals, that we don't do the same things that other mammals do. We don't self-regulate in the way that they do. We don't just allow our feelings, and we don't just act on our impulses. We sort of keep everything aside, and that probably comes from, in part, due to societal expectations, family expectations, cultural expectations. Like, this is the way you should act. This is the way you should do things. This is the way you should look. This is the way you should be. But why are I would ask then, well, why are those cultural expectations there? Where do those come from? And I don't know how far back we could go. At some point, we lost contact with just being ourselves as an organism that is able to self-regulate and co-regulate with each other. At some point, we lost that, and we had these words start to populate our brain, and we started to impose these words onto other people, I would assume, but I don't know. I don't know at what point that began. But at some point, there was some human mammal, that was in a dominant fight state and imposed their will upon the others. And maybe that was the first cultural belief. I have no idea. But at some point, when your will gets imposed upon, and you now have to ignore your natural impulses, you're disconnected from yourself, and you're more worried about appeasing, maybe, or fitting in, or not being different. I don't know. But at some point, you lose access to what's happening inside of you, and it becomes more about the other, the group. And I think there's a natural tendency and compulsion for us to connect with others. So it's like, that's okay. But then other people in that group may exploit that don't feel the same or feel some perverse version of connection, and they feel connection through dominance and ownership and whatnot. So they're able to manipulate someone else's natural capacity to connect and to be a part of a group, and not stick out. I'm not sure if it answers your question, but I think the answer is yes.
I don't think there's an answer. It's just a kind of, whoa, what's going on? It's more just reflection on existence. I just have this idea now. After all that happened, there was also this point where we started making machines, and we started having factories, and we started having all these things that our bodies can't keep up with. It's like we can't move that fast. The only way to sort of compete with these machines, or to I don't know, to have a job or something, we almost need to use our brain or make a new tool, or our bodies can't do it. We can't compete with these freaking machines. Now we got AI and all this other stuff making it even harder and harder. So how do you think this sort of the industrial revolution and just overall getting stronger and stronger and faster machines and technology replacing work and making us basically, I feel like, work faster and harder and in almost unnatural, disembodied ways? We don't really use our bodies at work so much anymore.
True.
Once again, these aren't really questions, but what's your any thoughts on that? Like, did that must have contributed to some kind of weird trauma and disembodiment too? And what I guess so. you can look back on that past or also the future. What's AI and all that's going to do to us?
Let's look at it as what I like to ask myself is what is it that we evolved to do? And human beings evolved. Our bodies are built, as best I know, we're bipedal. We're supposed to walk long distances and seek out food and resources and connection and build new tribes and whatnot. Like, we're kind of built for mobility, right? We're kind of built for long periods of mobility. We're not built for a sedentary lifestyle. And so when we had opposable thumbs and we were able to make fire and make our lives easier in agriculture, when human beings began to eventually unlock these things that made life easier, all of a sudden, like, we didn't have to walk as far. We didn't have to, seek out other tribes as much. Like, they were maybe close by because we congregated in your watering holes and whatnot. I don't know. But I'm just making stuff up here. But basically, our life got easier. And so if we're spending less time chewing because now we can cook food, well, like, what do you do with that extra time? If you now can grow crops, you don't have to walk around as much. Or now if you have a wolf that's now part of your family and we call it a dog, well, now all of a sudden you have a hunting buddy. Hunting becomes easier. It's like, well, I got extra time on my hands. What do I do? And I don't know if human beings had a really good answer for that. And eventually it's like, I'll just start picking on people. I'll just start, subjugating people. And all of a sudden these thoughts pop into our mind about well, what's going on here? Why is the sun rising? Where does it go at nighttime? And then we start to create these ideas of well, there must be a really big person in the sky that's controlling this stuff maybe. And I don't know. It's like, once we had extra time on our hands, we kind of filled it with other stuff, as best I can tell. And so now we're getting really, 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 really good at creating more time for ourselves, which is nice, but we don't really know how to handle that. We've kind of along the way lost our natural capacity, it seems like, to connect with each other. We can do it individually, but in these larger groups, we're not very good at it seems like. And we don't know how to, we can't read. We've also lost things through texting and forum, Discord and Facebook. You don't hear someone's voice. So our ability to be empathetic is compromised. So it's kind of a good thing we've unlocked all these hacks to make our life easier and lifted so many people out of poverty through making life easier and having more wealth to spread around, which is great. But at the same time, we kind of have gotten sucked into this machine of ownership and competition. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think competition is actually a really good thing, But if you're dysregulated and in a fight state and you're competitive, that can lead to some really disastrous things, and that can lead to exploitation. That can lead to all kinds of unempathetic, horrible things that are traumatizing to people and to societies, right? So I think it's it's good. We have a lot of time on our hands, but we don't know what the hell to do with it. I think that's kind of the issue. And we've been traumatized throughout generations, on not just on a very social level, on a very cultural level, on a familial level, family to family, culture to culture. Yeah, it's the hell do you do with all that time on your hands, I guess? And you're traumatized. What do you do with that time on your hands?
I know, and it seems like we can trick ourselves. We could so easily trick ourselves into thinking that we don't need people anymore because we have money. We can buy our own food. We can protect ourselves with our little thingies and stuff. But like you're saying, in the biological level, we are mammals and we do need people. But
yeah,
it seems like the more money we get as an individual or as a country or whatever, we can easily fool ourselves for a time, maybe until we get sick or something, or lonely or whatever happens. But we can think, oh, I can do it myself because I've got all these resources, and we've moved beyond being a mammal. Now we're individuals with extra resources, and we don't need help. We don't need you to protect. I don't need your protection. I don't need your food. I don't need your love. I can go on the internet or something. It seems like there's something like that going on there, but it's got to fall apart eventually. But I don't know what do you think about that?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's we're still ultimately mammals that are dictated and driven by our biological necessities in our dysregulated state. So that is the driver. But at the same time, we've now been able to incorporate other species into our dysfunction, like having pets. You know what I mean? They are a part of our dysfunction. But on top of that, now we can also incorporate things that are not real, like machines, to help us, to, I guess, remain dysfunctional or dysregulated. And now on top of that, we are actually creating, in a sense, new levels of consciousness through artificial intelligence. So I don't know. I have no idea where the heck all this goes. I'm not sure how we could predict something like that, but it seems like further embodiment. At the same time, as our lives generally get easier and easier with more time, and as we have access to free, unlimited information, I think people are curious about, what the hell is mental health, and how do I feel differently? How do I change my life? And there's tons of information out there about that. And, that's what I give away for free on my podcast as best I can. So it's kind of a good thing we have extra time on our hands, I think, and we can create these machines and artificial intelligences to make our life even easier generally, and to give other people opportunities for, the internet has been an absolute, I think, boon for most people to create something from their life. It's an equal playing field as long as you have access to the internet. So these are, in general, I think, good, helpful things, and they provide opportunities for change, for personal change, for learning new things. But there's also the pendulum swings the other way as well, obviously, right?
Right. And people ask me sometimes, why is there this trending topic? Well, they don't ask me, I ask myself. No one asks me nothing. But why is dopamine trending right now? Why is polyvagal theory isn't exactly trending yet, but hopefully. Yeah. I think the answer is just, now we can talk to each other. We're scrambling, trying to find an answer, and we can't find the right words for things. We can't find the right way to talk about the right vocabulary because we're not used to talking about these things. People don't talk about these things. But now we have this internet and these podcasts and all these. I can talk to you. We have this conversation. And we could try to find the right words and try to get a grip on this. But this is definitely a good thing. It seems
I'm sorry, you just broke up. I didn't hear the last thing you said.
I was saying how, despite the ills of the internet, now we can have, even though we can't find the correct words always, we're trying to use neurochemical words or polyvagal vocabulary or different things like this. The vocabulary doesn't matter, but the thing is, we're talking to each other and trying to figure out how to get better, and that's cool. Even if we can't fit, you're in 2D right now, I'm in 2D, and all of that. There are a lot of cool things about this, and if people can listen to podcasts or read these books, this is not a new idea, but that's still pretty amazing. So I don't know, maybe it's overall a good thing. I have another question. It seems a lot of this goes back to sort of our vision of how small we are and how big we are. Like what is the outside and what is the inside? If we're saying I am this small, I am this brain, and everything else is other, the body is other, and animals are other, that kind of almost puts you into like a weird kind of negative or fight flight kind of state itself, because it's you against the world and you are so small. But when we start to open up, what happens? I guess my question is, when we're in a safe and social space, does something like perception kind of change thing happen where like your perception actually opens up and you can sort of get a more panoramic view of things and things become more connected, not just you and other humans, but you and nature, you and the sun, you and the water, you and all the animals? It's like a overall expansion kind of thing. It feels like it's sort of an expansion, connecting kind of thing going on there.
Yeah, it's very much part of the safe and social state is empathy and connection and feeling whole in yourself, but also connected with what's around you. And I would call that, so it's safety, but there's this thing where you can combine safety with immobilization. So it's safety plus shutdown, and that's called stillness. And I think part of stillness is awe, the experience of awe and connection and feeling one, but also small, but not small like, oh, I'm terrible. Small like, wow, this is incredible and I'm a part of this. And here I am, just a small part of it, but I'm still a part of it.
Anyway, I feel like I'm wearing you out now too, though, because we've been talking for a long time. I do want to talk for a little bit more, but at the same time, I can feel the energy draining too. So what are your thoughts on that? We'll do, I don't know, a few more minutes or something.
Yeah, we can do 10 more minutes. How about that?
Yeah, 10 sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah.
What I was saying though is that I think safety and safety and stillness, yes, they bring feelings of connection, and not just within yourself, but also with the world, and not just with others, but like with, your senses, the outside world, everything becomes more tangible, and like you feel like you're part of it and you're directly experiencing it. So yeah, there's a sense of expansion within safety.
Maybe co-regulation isn't the right word for it, but can nature itself, can walking in nature, hiking and swimming in the ocean and walking around and stuff, can that somehow do something for you? If you don't have a parent that's there for you or whatever, how big of a role can nature play?
Yeah, what you're describing is so it's not co-regulation. Even if you don't have people in your life that are providing really good co-regulation, you can still ideally do enough self-regulation to be curious about, like, what is it like for me to be here right now in this moment? And I think that is the ideal. I think that's what we should be striving for, is the present moment, because besides us, every other mammal seems to do just fine with that. My dogs can go lay out in the sun and not worry about the next day. And they don't have our lives, obviously, right? They're simply in the moment, and that is it. And so the closer we can get to that, I think the better. And so, yeah, nature and our activities in nature, swimming and walking and biking, all of those bring really good opportunities to be in the present moment through safety and through mindfulness.
So once we're up or higher, not higher, once we're in this sort of safe social space, it seems like sometimes you want to go down the ladder. There are like benefits to being in sort of this fight or flight mode sometimes, in terms of maybe it's creativity or imagination or motivation or things like that. What are some of the benefits to not moving and like staying stuck down there, but like going on a little vacation there for a couple hours? What are some benefits to these other states? Yeah, I guess you're still safe and social, but you're getting a little getting a little bit of that fight flight energy and moving in a positive direction. What are some benefits to that kind of to visiting such a space, not getting stuck, but just kind of visiting there?
Yeah, just accessing it. That's exactly the benefit. Is it's a temporary thing. So it's like when I go to work, hopefully I'm not in a shutdown state and getting nothing done. Hopefully I can access my safety state so I can be okay with just being still in therapy and listening to people. But when I'm in therapy, I have to be able to access my other states so I can use empathy, but not just empathy, but also compassion, and connect with that person so I can feel their feelings, but also, or at least my own version of their feelings, but also stay in my safety state and provide safety cues. So for me as a therapist, it's really important I can feel those while maintaining my own safety state. But even when someone's going to work to do, paperwork, which is mind-numbingly boring, you have to have some level of mobility in your system just to get stuff done. So all these states serve a function for survival, but they also serve a function for feeling motivation and being able to accept challenge and be able to be confronted with challenges in life and navigate your way through it. You may need to, like as a business owner, I kind of have to have a little fight energy, which I'm not very good at. I've existed more of a shutdown state my whole life, but I have a lot of access to my safety state, but not my flight fight range. That's kind of what I'm working on still. It's a long process. So if I had a lot of fight energy in my system, I'd be super competitive, putting out even more content. I have enough to put out a lot of content, but I'd be doing more. I might be more aggressive in my tone and the way I talk about, competitive ideas and whatnot. I might really go in at it and create like a line and like you're on my side or not. Right? That could help me build an audience. That could help me probably with course sales. I just don't have a lot of that in my system, but I have enough. You know what I mean? So these pieces, I have enough to like be mobile and to create and to keep going and to be motivated. So these have a function in our life as long as you can access it. But there definitely is too much. There's a possibility of like too much, and now it becomes detrimental to yourself or to others or to society in a larger sense.
Yeah, and I don't want to like point out certain like CEOs and these guys, but there is like, if you look at a lot of these, really successful people, they've made billions of dollars or created these great companies.
Yeah.
It seems, they're hyper motivated and focused and they're growing and they're in growth mode, but they also seem to be in some sort of almost fight mode or flight mode, or something else is going on there sometimes. Sometimes they are in a safe social space, and I'm not picking on anybody in particular, but it seems to be a sort of common thing. So that might be an example of where, you want to be successful, but sometimes there's a price you pay for success on your own individual level. Yeah. So there, people in my mind who want government positions. My question is like, why would you want that much control over other people's lives? Like, what's going on inside of you that you cannot deal with, and now you want to control my life? That's to me, anyone who's seeking out government positions, anyone who's like, if you want to kick butt and climb the corporate ladder and you can feel in that proud of yourself and be regulated, cool, have at it. But there's obviously those people who are willing to do anything it takes to get financial success and wealth, and are willing to pollute and take advantage of people. And, it's like that element is there, and that's that dysregulated person that scares the heck out of me. But I think you can also be someone who's well in your safety state, has lots of love to give, lots of compassion, and be motivated to give and just like kill it in the business space. And that's great. And I think there can be politicians that have good intentions and want to help, but there's also like, what kind of person wants that much power? That scares the heck out of me. Yeah. And then I know there's like culture and countries and people and happiness. These are really hard things to find a single cause or to understand. But sometimes when you travel to these quote unquote like poorer countries, they're not as wealthy. People aren't making as much money. A lot of times people are smiling and they're giving off more of these safety and social cues, actually, whereas you would think, they should be in danger mode, but they're not. They're smiling, they're laughing, and I don't know, it's a warmer kind of vibe sometimes. Maybe it's the weather. I don't know. There's probably a lot of factors, but like I go to some of these poorer countries that should be less happy, but they seem way happier. So do you have any thoughts on that? On what's in terms of what we've been talking about so far? I know it's like every country is different, but
yeah. I would assume that the further you are away from these technological pieces of our life that we've created, the closer you are to what we evolved to be. And so if you don't have machines and artificial intelligence and governmental systems and religious institutions, if you don't have these in your day-to-day life, I have no idea. I'm just talking generally, right? If you don't have these things, impeding your natural capacity to self-regulate and listen to what your body needs, then you're just closer to what we evolved to be. And I would assume that would be more connective with the people around you, even though life is less relaxing, less luxurious, and less comfortable, that's not necessarily a bad thing for ourselves. As simply as remember, we're organisms. This is biology, and we evolved to connect with each other and to create families and tribes. And that's about it. Like the closer we can get to that, I think the closer we get to actual self-regulation, actual co-regulation. I'm not saying like get rid of all of our technology. I love my stuff. I'm not getting rid of it. But I would say that I would think the closer you are to that, you're probably simply closer to being in touch with the present moment, with each other and with yourself.
I will thank you, Justin, I was a little bit scared to do this interview at first because I've never done an interview before. Part of me wanted to just I should just not do it. So thank you for not traumatizing me, not giving me a bad first experience. This is great. I want to do more of this, and I'm happy we could chat. And if people want to learn more about your ideas, what you've been doing, you have a lot of different resources all over the internet. Where is the best place to go for people who want to learn or hear more of your ideas?
Justin LMF website. That's where I have my podcast, my Stuck Not Broken podcast, and my blog, and like everything's there. It's the central hub. JustinLMFT.com. Tons of free stuff there for people. And there's even a get started page. So yeah, go to JustinLMFT.com and go to get started.
Okay, cool. I'll add links to all that and everything. Anyway, thank you so much.
Thanks.
I hope we can do this again in the future. And thank you for putting up with all my interruptions and random questions and all that. I had a lot of fun though. And thank you so much.
It was fun. Thanks for having me on.
Check it out. DJ Delta up here in the house. Mikey's house. Justin Sunseri, LMFT. Used to be stuck, now I'm breaking free. They call me Busty Buster cause my head was busted. But that was all lies, I just needed some love. The past is in my tummy, the body keeps a score. Trying to climb the PV ladder, but can't find the door. Popping pills, smashing bottles, pounding galore. On top of the world for about an hour or more. But still frozen in the park, a fighter in the dark, a man in a cage dodging tigers and darts. I wanna play where safe and social things roam. Big hugs, fat smiles to be in my home. Mommy, daddy, and teacher, just look at me. I'm not a ghost, not a doll, not a machine. No more drugs, distractions, and technology. Let's connect for real, become a family. Stuck Not Broken is my therapy. www.justinlmft.